fellow crafters, this is Nala and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a spanner panel card. I think that's what it's called. So here I'm starting off with some red cardstock from My Favorite Things, and we're going to bring it down to 8.5 by 5.5, and then we're going to score it at 4.25. This will make a A2 size card, and I'm going to use my score buddy to score at 4.25 and fold my card base. And this is going to be a little difficult to explain, but I'm going to do it the best that I can. You're going to cut 1 1/4 off each side, but on one side of the panel. So your cover, you're going to bring that down to your trimmer, cut it 1 1/4, measure 1 1/4, cut it, but you're going to stop at the center where the crease is where we will fold the card. And then you'll take the other side and you're going to cut that at 4.25. Or you can just flip it and cut it at 1 1/4. I had a little difficulty with it for some reason, but it was also 2 in the morning when I was doing this, so most likely I was exhausted. So here we have now this fun fold card, and I'm just measuring it to make sure that both sides are equal. And we have this fun fold card that has a middle flap and then 2 side flaps. I did trim off a very tiny bit because I think my cardstock was a little bit bigger, and so I just chopped off for a little slither. So in the middle of this card, I'm going to place acetate. It does not have to be acetate. You can choose to put vellum, you can put a die cut between there, maybe a strip of die cut. It's up to you. I decided to go with acetate. This acetate is actually heat resistant. It's from Simon Says Stamp, because I'm going to emboss my greeting on there. You want to make sure that whatever you decide to place between those panels, that there is enough room for you to be able to glue the 2 side panels together, kind of almost like a bridge of some sort, right? You want to make sure that you're putting enough space for you to be able to glue whatever you decide on both panels, and enough to make sure that it does not seep out, because you do not want the glue to seep out onto your project and glue it shut. So my recommendation is I'm using acetate, and what you saw is I was rubbing it down so that it's not a glob, right? It can be flushed upon the acetate, and that'll help to keep it in line. And I'm using a Barely Arts precision glue. You want to use a very strong adhesive for your acetate. If you decide to use acetate, you want to use a very strong adhesive because you don't want that to come apart. Here is the 6x6 Honeybee Holiday Cheer paper pad. I decided I was going to use those 3 panels, and I'm going to cut the panels to 4 inches by 1 inch. And then I will use the floral paper to cut the panel for the middle, and that one measures at, I want to say it's 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then the inside panel for the inside of the card is 4 by 5 1/4. And so when you're choosing your card, not card, sorry, when you're choosing your paper pad combination, you want to make sure that you are choosing papers that coincides together, right? You don't want to have like a blue, pink, yellow. I mean, if you do, hey, do you, okay? Do what makes you happy. But I know some people have issues with some pattern paper. So I tried to make sure that, okay, I chose one that has a design, and then the design color is available in each pad, right? So I got the green, and then I have that light green, or faded green, so to speak. Now, I'm putting my 4x1 inches on the two side panels. You'll see here, I made a mistake. I put tape runner on the top of my panel. And I realized it. I was like, ugh. So I had to cut out another one. I wanted to keep that in there to let you guys know, like, these things happen. And it was, mind you, this was again like 2 in the morning. So I was just like, oh, come on. How did I do that? And so I just cut out another one and then put my tape runner, ran my tape runner over it, and then adhere it to the other panel. And then I want to make sure that I had that nice red border because we're going for a kind of typical Christmas card, right? So it's red and green, red, white, and green. That's a typical Christmas color. So now I'm taking my middle panel and I'm going to open up that flap and I'm going to place it in the middle. And again, I want to make sure that I do have that border going all the way around so that my entire design will be cohesive, right? And the end of it, I still had a little bit of paper sticking out and I just trimmed that off with some scissors. And then we are now done with our front. The inside, I just took that 4x5 1/4 panel, made sure that it was appropriate. So made sure the border was exactly the size, same size all the way around before I adhered it to my card base. Now, greeting wise, I decided to use the Gina K. Oh my God, what was that called? Gina K. Festive Greetings, I think it's called. And I went with the season greetings. I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do with that, like if I could use it, but I decided to just throw it out. But yes, we're going to use the season's greetings because I think that was perfect. I was stuck between the merry and bright and season greeting, but I figured I'm going to keep it simple because there was a lot going on in that background. And I was not too sure if that gold was going to show up on the card. But I YOLO'd it, guys. I YOLO'd it. I just went ahead and I was like, oh, gold should be fine. It's red and green, right? Red, green, gold. That's the typical combination when we do Christmas trees. It's red, green, gold. So I just took my my anti-static powder. I placed my card on a Misty. You want to make sure that if you're using a sticky mat or your Misty tool or whatever stamp tool you decide to use, make sure that it is clean because you do not want any ink getting on your project and you have to start all over again. That did not happen here, thank God. But I just want to make sure I put that out there so you guys are aware. So I made sure I put my stamp. I placed it on that acetate to make sure that it's going to fit. I close my Misty tool, pick up the stamp. I'm using my Versamark watermark ink to emboss my gold embossing powder. Versamark watermark ink is a very sticky ink that helps the embossing powder to stick so that you can heat it and it can melt beautifully. Now I place my embossing powder inside these Dollar Tree containers. I got this idea from Jennifer McGuire. I love her organization, and sometimes, I become an organized freak myself. So I was like, I love this idea, and it keeps me from having 6 bottles of embossing folder. Embossing powder of the same type around, right? I can actually just pour it all inside in there. So the embossing powder that I'm using, this is Bruce Monroe Gilded. And this is a heat resistant acetate. So I'm going to make sure that I heat my heat gun before bringing it to my project. So you want to make sure you let it run a little bit, let it heat up, and do not bring it too close to your acetate. Like, even though this is a heat resistant acetate, it is going to very slightly warp, but not bad. Nothing compared to utilizing regular acetate. And I bring it to the bag to kind of heat up that paper, not the paper, the acetate, and I'm constantly moving it. And you'll see I'll move it away from the acetate and then bring it back. This is just so it can cool down a little bit and to prevent it from severely warping. So you want to continuously move that around, and then make sure that you are keeping an eye on your acetate and knowing when it needs a break and when to go back with the heat. And then we're now going to place our inside panel so that we can write our grading. I love how it's turning out. I just wanted to make sure that I can write a greeting in there, right? I'm not going to stamp a greeting. I have my own personal greetings that I like to write with my Cricut. So, I use my Cricut to write it, and then I place it in there. So I just wanted to make sure that I had a place for me to write my greeting. So I'm very famous for forgetting to measure certain things. So you will see me do things like this a lot. So I'm taking my pencil and I'm kind of measuring where everything stops or where I need the paper to stop, right? And I just make a small little pencil line. I'm going to use my trimmer, line those lines up with the blade of my trimmer. That way I know, and make sure that it's well flushed against the top edge of my trimmer, and that way it makes sure that, one, we are making a straight cut, two, we are able to identify where we are cutting. So having that line on that blade, I know and I'm sure that it is going to be a straight line on this line, which is what we want. So we're going to trim that down, and then we'll measure. Of course, you want to make sure before you adhere anything that you are measuring and you are making sure that it is exactly the way you want it to be. So I'm going to bring it back to my card, and I'm going to make sure that it is going to fit right. And it does. It's perfectly inside. It's not standing out anywhere. And so I'm happy with it. We're going to go ahead and place some tape runner or glue, whatever you decide to adhere with. And I'm going to hold it against that middle panel, and then carefully close it, add pressure, and then open it. And it should fit perfectly behind that panel without coming out on the sides. But that is our finished card, guys. I honestly had a lot of fun with this card. This is the first time I've made this card. I've never even heard of it, but I challenge you guys to try this card design out, this fun fold out, and let me see what cards you guys come up with and your designs. I hope you were inspired. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you did, and I will definitely see you guys later. You matter, you're beautiful, and your life is the art of this world. Later.